Thanks for being here. This is great. So I'm so excited to have this conversation because sports, business, this is really the perfect blend of, as we just pointed out, my passions and now obviously for you as well. But I wanted to ask you, I've met a lot of athletes right after they've retired. And the number one thing they always say is, I wish I had started planning for that day after earlier. And some of them wake up the next day and you spend your whole life getting really good at one thing and then suddenly that thing's not there. I get the sense it wasn't like that for you. So I wanted, before we get into your businesses and your many ventures now, I wanted to ask you, while you were still racing, what was the process like of thinking about that next day while you were still doing the thing?
Well, I was excited for it. I mean, I chose to retire, so there's that. But I remember a long time ago, my first real boss, Bobby Rahal, he told me before I was even probably getting paid by him that he said, don't spend all your money. And he said, when I was still racing, I wanted to make sure that I created a foundation that would support the same kind of lifestyle I had while I was racing after. And so for him, he had dealerships and various different things that, kept a salary coming in so he could continue to live the same life. And so I remember that really, really well. And so as I went through my life, at that point in time, I was probably 22. And I remember thinking, as time went on more and more, how that was a really important thing to think about. Like, how do I use this platform I have now to launch other things that I'm passionate about? Because there's going to be a lot of time after I'm done racing for me to do other things, and let's make them fun and let's give them the best chance they have to be successful. So that was always in the back of my mind and became much more of a prevalent thought as time went on.
So we've got a number of ventures: Somnium Wines, pretty intense fitness book, Warrior, the clothing line. How did you go about choosing those fields to go into?
Well, I like drinking wine.
That'll do it.
So I was like, this would be really fun to do and make it really good. And I don't know if any of you guys have been to a wine region or to Napa Valley in particular, but it's so lovely. It's so wonderful. Actually, in fact, I'm leaving to head there after this is over with, of course. And I'm over here on this side of the country, so, but it was just, I remember being in Napa Valley. It was 2006, having a glass of wine before noon, of course, of white, and looking down the valley at the, fog pulling back into San Francisco on a November brisk morning, and thinking like, my God, this is beautiful. Like, it would be so cool to have something like this someday. And I literally thought those exact words: this would be cool to have something like someday. Yeah. And I thought, well, I don't have $50 million. That was my imagination of how much it costs, and I'm not far off probably. But I thought, and then I really thought this, yet, as I imagined I would have that.
Love it.
But I was like, man, it'd be cool to have. And then not long after that, well, actually that very day I met my winemaker, and so that started the process. But it was born from a dream, and that's why the name of the wine is Somnium, which is Latin, and it means dream. Because I thought it was only something, it was a dream, and I thought maybe it will only remain a dream. But that became a reality. So just enjoying the love of wine and the process and the romance of it, and just the whole lifestyle up there is beautiful. So that's how Somnium was born. And Warrior was actually a meeting I went to New York a couple of years ago to meet with a large manufacturer of clothing, and I talked to them about making clothes for the racetrack, because in NASCAR, there's so many hands in the cookie jar that everyone makes just a little. And it's very frustrating, because I'm pretty sure they're not buying it for a lot of other reasons other than it's my shirt. So I was very frustrated by the process, and I was like, man, how do I capitalize on this opportunity that I have? I'm not going to race forever. And they heard my passion for design and clothes, and that I'd love to have a clothing line someday. But I said I'm willing to be patient and wait for the right opportunity, because it's all about distribution and being with the right partner. And they never ever designed one single shirt for the racetrack, and we went and sold it to HSN and launched on HSN last year, and created a really good foundation of awareness for the brand. And then the book, Pretty Intense, I really think it was born from posting pictures of me doing yoga. I think it was really that simple. I mean, people are like, wow, you're into fitness? I'm like, yeah. And that's like the easy stuff I do. So people just became aware of that, and posting photos on social media of food that I do and workouts. And there was a writer that was interested in writing a health and fitness book with me, and I said, yeah, I want to write it the way I want to write it, though. So I remember when the rough draft of kind of how the book could be laid out came, and I was like, no, you're not getting it. That's not what I want to write. And so I was like, you're going to come to me, and you're going to spend 2 days with me and watch how I work out, watch how I eat, understand my lifestyle, understand what my mission is, and then we're going to write this book. And so in the end, I ended up writing the outline on an airplane one day because I wanted it exactly how I wanted it. I wrote a base for every chapter so that the direction of every chapter was with the intention that I had for it. I wrote the entire workout program, tested it with a group for 3 months. That's why there's testimonials and before and afters in the book. And then I wrote and photographed all the food. There are 50 recipes that I wrote. So that was my baby for about 1.5 years. So, I mean, honestly, they're just all passion projects. So, from there, it'd be fun to have a cooking show someday. It would be fun to, I'm a big fan of sort of the spiritual side of things, the mind-body part of life, and how important it is to self-reflect, how important it is to understand that your thoughts become your reality, and how to learn how to change those, control those, and make them more positive on a regular basis. So the first third of the book is all mind-body connection stuff, mantras, things like that. They're all born from a place of passion. And so when it came time last year to decide what I needed to do in my life, and my sponsor left at the beginning of the year, which is nothing that's ever happened to me before. They got bought by private equity, and that didn't work out well for me. And we're at Fortune. I feel like that would be more funny.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No, that's not funny?
They know what you're talking about.
Wreaks havoc on advertising dollars.
They know how that works.
And so the sponsor went away, and then all these brands launched at the same time pretty much. And I just was like, I feel like the signs were coming in for me to not quit, but learn how to let go. And I think that's a valuable lesson in life, is to learn the difference between quitting and letting go, because there's going to be plenty of things that come across us in our life where we're going to be like, do we dig deeper? Especially in a room like, obviously, we're sitting in here today. Like, you probably all have that motivation and drive to try a little harder and dig a little deeper. And you need to start recognizing the signs that are telling you to let go, not to quit, to let go and make space for something new.
Yeah, I was going to say, to the best of my knowledge, there are no race car drivers out here, but there are people, I think, who can relate to your story of leaving what's safe, what's known, what you've spent your whole life doing, and sort of taking the risk. What was the scariest part of that for you?
Well, I mean, funny you say that. I was just speaking last night at the ESPN Summit, and I said, I don't think that we're not afraid of something new. We're not afraid of change from a new perspective. We're afraid of leaving something behind. We're afraid of never seeing someone again. We're afraid of never doing something again. We're afraid of not living in the same place, not going to the same places. We're afraid of leaving something behind and not having that anymore, and how that's going to affect us. And we're not scared of something new. New is exciting, and I think we can kind of all agree that something new is exciting. But it's the leaving things behind that is the fear-based part. And so for me, when it comes time to make decisions, my first instinct is fear, for sure. It's, oh no, I'm not ready. Like when my sponsor left last year at the beginning of the year, I was like, it felt good to say that actually, because I, came to realize that maybe racing wasn't really my true passion anymore, and it had led me in other directions. But it felt good for a second to be like, no, I'm not ready. Oh, I do want to keep doing this. But I had to go through my process, and so the first instinct is that. But then the next thing I think, and I think this is what makes me have a lot of change in my life and okay with it and excited, is that I think maybe it's going to be better than what I have now. Maybe it'll be better than I can even imagine. And so that's what gives me the motivation to do something new.
One of the things I've always found fascinating about your career, so if you guys think corporate America is male dominated and the numbers, like imagine the world that she was in, right? And you always found ways to make, not only to overcome that sort of that numbers game, but to use your gender as an advantage, to recognize your uniqueness and how it made you special. I was wondering if you had any advice. Obviously it's different, you know, but how women in male-dominated fields can start to think about it as a power and not something to be overcome.
Yeah. It was funny, I was just talking last night to someone who was an orthopedic surgeon, and she said that a man comes out of surgery and says, I did that femur fracture, oh yeah, I nailed it, I did everything. And a woman will come out and say like, yeah, I mean, I had help, someone, you know, helped me, you know, with this part, I didn't do everything. And so she looked at it as an insecurity, like, how do I get more confident? I said, oh no, honey, he's insecure. He's the one that said he had to do everything because he has an ego. You don't, which is why you told the truth. And so I think that I think anytime we're in our truth, I think that we shine. And you know, whether that's something that happened that day or whether it's a passion that you have in life, I think that's the most important thing, is that we are in our truth verbally and physically.
And you're now, the fields you just described, you know, fitness, health, wine, you're going to be working with more women now. Those numbers aren't, I mean, I'm excited about that.
It's kind of cool, but it's also something a little scary because I'm so used to standing out and being the only girl. And I remember saying last year, I was talking to Hannah Storm on the stage last night, and I was like, I told her that, you know, I didn't want to be one of the million, I wanted to be one in a million. And that's how I was in racing. Yeah. And it made me scared to step into these new arenas that are much more female dominated. And how am I going to stand out? You know, how am I going to get noticed? And so, you know, that's one of those fear factors that I had to deal with. But I think that the thing that it becomes most powerful overall is that you are doing something you're passionate about. And I think anyone can relate to someone who's passionate about something, even if you maybe don't agree at first or you don't like it at first. Something happens that's magic when someone does something that they love to do. It resonates. And it's just a matter of finding those things.
Last question, we only have a minute left.
I know. Can we double our time?
Well, you're used to going fast, right? I'm sure you've never heard that joke before. Okay. You know, we talked about, you know, some of the exciting things about the transition. What's been the most challenging part of this transition for you?
Knowing what to do next. Like, I'm stepping into new arenas that are new businesses, new people, new platforms, and new companies, and you always want to take a good step forward, right? You don't really want to take a step back or a side step. You want to step forward, and you want to know you're working with the right people, doing the right thing. So it creates a procrastination in me. And I don't know if anyone's like me, but if I don't know what to do, I'm like, tomorrow. If I know what to do, I'm on it, like really right away, as soon as I get up at 7 a.m. every morning, naturally. So that's true. I wasn't making a joke. But it's, and so I think that knowing, being confident that I'm doing the right thing is hard, and so it makes me procrastinate. But what I really need to do is just listen to my own advice, and that's just get going, get started, take a step. You know, you're going to learn from mistakes. You are. I mean, maybe it's not as productive as taking a good step, but you're still going to learn. And you know, we're going to chart uncharted territory with things that we do all the time, and that's the only way to learn. And so for me, it sometimes gets hard to be motivated to just take a step and make a deal with someone new, or work with a new company or a new person, or hire somebody, because you're like, I don't want to screw up. But you just got to do it, and you just got to move forward. And if you make mistakes, they're also part of the learning process. And that's the same. I mean, I learned that from racing, really, and that's because we'd go to the racetrack, and we'd have a few hours of practice, and then we'd qualify and race. And in practice, you're trying different changes on the car. You're trying different springs, different sway bar settings, and you're trying different shocks and various different things, tire pressures, and you go out, and almost nothing works. I'm not gonna lie, like almost nothing works. And if you can find just a couple good things that work on the weekend, you'll have a good weekend. But look, if you try something that didn't work, you know not to do it again. And so that's life, right? You're going to try a lot of things that don't work, but when you do find something that works, it's a big step forward.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.